Ryan Noach joins the podcast today, Chief Executive Officer at Discovery Health in South Africa. I'm extremely delighted to have Ryan join. I've researched his profile and I've connected with some of the folks that have served under his leadership. And I've heard tremendous things about his impact, his ability to orchestrate a culture of achieving a vision and on a mission to make society a better place today. And I've asked Ryan to come on today to talk to me about his leadership journey, to talk to me about some of the things that he does to make an impact to his organization and human society on a regular basis. So without further ado, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to connect with me.
Thanks, Rishan, for reaching out. It's great to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I reached out, connected with you, really wanted to have this conversation with you because of your incredible journey that you've had prior to becoming Chief Executive Officer at Discovery Health. And I really wanted to tap into that just a little bit, right? Just to talk to you about, who is Ryan long before the Chief Executive Officer role at Discovery Health, and how the journey all began and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, it's. I think I'm too old to remember all that way back now. I grew up in South Africa as a white, privileged South African. We grew up in a very disparate society, an unfair society. And my demographic got unique privilege in this society. I had an unbelievably powerful education, secular education, and trained as a doctor straight after school, and I'm very cognizant of the privileged upbringing that I had. I suppose as a South African born prior to the end of apartheid and having lived through that, does give one a particular sensitivity and advantage around understanding the importance of diversity and inclusivity in work in the workplace and in teams. And one of the key things for me that I think provides us an advantage as South African leaders is the ability to accept and understand diversity, to be highly sensitive to it, and to work very hard, both overcoming unconscious bias and being very consciously focused on making sure that we leverage the best out of the leadership team in the room to get diverse views, diverse opinions, diverse experiences, and come out with decisions that are consensus oriented and balanced. Right throughout my childhood, I was somebody who was an adrenaline junkie. I've always enjoyed excitement and passion. I've always volunteered for various things and been quite involved in social causes. And as I've got older, kind of reflecting on that, I've recognized that my own sense of value, the feeling that I have about the value that I add to the world, is measured by the impact I have on others. We all have a metric for value for ourselves. Mine is how much impact I can have on others. And so I quickly became a problem guy. People would come to me to solve problems, whether it be a healthcare problem or otherwise. And I was the go-to guy. And I volunteered those services in all sorts of different environments. So once I'd studied medicine, it really took me down a road of emergency medicine. I worked as a firefighter, I worked as a rescue technician and trained as that. And became a pre-hospital emergency medicine specialist. I did a lot of work in ER units, and that really became my key passion. I started an emergency medical helicopter evacuation business. It was opportunistic, and that really evolved into a career in business, quite by default, not by design. Never intended to go down that road, but fortunately, as things were successful and moved from one to the next, I landed up in the world of commerce.
Right. Listen, and I appreciate the humility there just as well in terms of calling out your privilege, just in terms of who you are from an identity perspective as well, right? So thank you for taking me through that moment. When I look at your career, Ryan, right, of course, incredible impact as well, incredible values that you stand by just in terms of your merit of impact to supporting others and really helping and enabling others around you. When I think about your career, in addition to some of the things you've talked about, right, around your accessibility to education and whatnot, when I think about your career, you've, of course, medical director to chief executive officer to one of the most relied upon companies in the country today. Like, talk to me about maybe some of the significant things you've had to do as an individual, as a leader, to transition, into that rapidly growing trajectory of yours from medical director all the way to CEO of the company?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a journey that that life has led me down. I never had a grand plan, and you know, I've been lucky and opportunistic in some respects, but it does take, I think, one hallmark of it is a high work rate and commitment and energy. I think the underlying theme for me is about building teams. I've got a firm belief in, if you surround yourself with the best people, build brilliant teams around you, remain responsible to society, a responsible leader, be very cognizant of stakeholders. That keeps you relevant, and I think the people around you carry you to greatness. And that really has been an absolute hallmark of it for me. There have been key people in my career who've had a huge influence on me, and having mentors and, you know, a support structure you can turn to for advice and guidance is critical. But all of this sounds very poetic and like it's out of a leadership book. There's been lots of times that I've bumped my head. There've been hard lessons learned along the way, personal lessons and professional ones. I reached a key point in my career where I realized that part of the responsibility of a business leader is also the person that you are. You bear not only the company's brand and the responsibility of the people that work with you and for you, but you also bear the responsibility as a personal leader of being somebody who sets the tone, sets an example. And I made some mistakes in my personal life, and I realized the impact of that as a leader. And that helped me change. It helped me become a better person. And I think in the end, helped me become a better leader too.
On that point, like, I love how you brought up teamwork there as well, right? Just in terms of the enablement, delegation, and empowering of individuals around you to make an impact and be in the journey with you as well, sharing a vision of just positive influence, right? And I know that at the back end of that, there's also the failures that come along with it. There's a lot of mistakes that come along with it as well in the leadership journey that I'm sure you'd have to react to. Before I get to that though, right, I want to jump into a little bit about the teamwork and the themes and principles that you apply as a leader, because you talked about enabling people around you and having the right mentors above you as well to get the coaching. But in your role as chief executive officer, it's not just those two layers. It's multiple layers that you're responsible for, multiple individuals, businesses that you're responsible for as well, where decisions that you make at your level carries a ripple effect and an impact across multiple layers. So I'm curious about, you know, in your role today, some of the leadership themes and principles that you apply to kind of be consistent with your impact across multiple different individuals, businesses, and teams that you represent.
Yeah, I guess it's quite hard to summarize them in one go. Let me think through them. I mean, the one is that I think you've got to stay true to core purpose at all times. And I do think that a business that has a very clear purpose, purpose-driven businesses, as opposed to product-driven businesses, have been much more successful during this COVID-19 period that's been very challenging. In my own career, that clear purpose of being socially responsible, of improving the health of people around us, and here at Discovery, enhancing and protecting the lives of our customers, that's almost a moral compass that guides every decision and makes sure that even if sometimes you sacrifice some, you know, results on the bottom line, there's a cost to what you're doing the right thing in the end, staying true to your purpose really is the guiding star, and really, I think, a hallmark of important leadership. I think authenticity is critical, Rishad. People see through leaders who are not authentic. I'm sometimes a bit too authentic in that I'm the same at home, at work, and in the social environment. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and you know, what you see is what you get. And you know, sometimes in the financial services industry, where people are in suits and ties and you know, projecting a certain image, I'm not. I am who I am. I'm a more casual guy. I'm more relaxed. But that authenticity, I find, is very important. It's real. It's disarming. and it allows a proximity to the people. I love getting ideas from everywhere. I think everybody's ideas have relevance. And throughout my leadership, I've found that some of the best ideas come from the people that you didn't expect them to come from. You know, people often say to me, you know, are you creative? But they ask that question in an artistic sense. Can you draw something? Can you draw a picture? Can you design something? I'm not creative at all in that respect. That part of my brain didn't develop well. But my creativity is in about identifying innovation, innovative opportunities, new products, new product designs, you know, clever business opportunities and processes. And I love being creative in that space, and doing that together with people who are like-minded, it really excites me.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I love how you started that off with just talking a little bit about the mission as well, right? Just the importance of really enabling people around you to believe in the mission, but obviously execute on the mission as well, regardless of the bottom line result or a specific revenue goal or any goal that might be attached to it, but rather enabling people to be their best versions of themselves to organically then drive results on the bottom line as needed. And then that second piece as well, from an authentic perspective, yes, I agree with what you said as well. Just having a chat with you offline before this, I can see how you operate from an authentic perspective as well. And I appreciate that, right? And I can imagine the individuals that you represent as well appreciate that. We talked a little bit earlier on there about failure prior to this topic specifically. Like, I'm curious though on your approach, your guidance on application to reacting to failure at specific times, and failure that results from a decision that you are solely responsible for. How do you react to that?
It's a great opportunity to learn, and we're all going to fail. If you're not failing often enough, then you're not trying new things often enough. And so I welcome those failures. We've got to have, I suppose, a risk-oriented mindset that we mitigate the fallout from those failures. And in considering any risky decision that has a potential of failing, one needs to quantify those risks and mitigate them, that if it does turn into a failure, you don't do harm to people or to the business. You know, certainly in the context of where I'm working now, it's a large industry leading business. You wouldn't want to ever put the business at risk by, you know, taking a decision around a new venture or a new opportunity. And so that systemic risk needs to be quantified. But those failures are critical. And both in my personal life and my professional life, I've managed to learn enormous amounts from failing. I often say to people that the difference between Homo sapien and primate, we're very similar, Homo sapien and primate. The difference is the Homo sapien, unlike the primate, won't make the same mistake recurrently. And so the important thing about those failures is to learn from them and not repeat those mistakes. You know, the best leaders tend to make decisions with only part of the information available to them. It's impossible in an organization of scale to have all the detailed information around every decision you take. You've got to be able to be decisive with sometimes not all of the information. That means that you're going to make the wrong decisions sometimes. You've got to be able to then take another decision, to U-turn, learn, accept that failure, and go a different direction.
Yeah, it's that real importance of just absorbing, acknowledging, embracing the actual failure, and then learning from it as well, and recovering from learning from it as well. I do agree with you as well, just in terms of the levels of information. I can only imagine the plethora of content that comes your way when it comes to making a decision, right? But if you need a Microsoft tool for that, let me know. I'm kidding. Leading through the challenging time, right? You know, of course, Chief Executive Officer, Discovery Health, major player in the healthcare space, pandemic, challenging situation that we've been dealing with for a very long time now across the world. Like, tell me a little bit about your art and science around leading through this very, very, very challenging time.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure that I have the answer. It's been a huge learning curve. I was appointed as chief executive on the 1st of January 2020, and then the pandemic hit the world in February that year, a month later. And I couldn't have imagined the stress and responsibility that would come with this. Discovery Health, I think, has performed extremely well through the pandemic. We've worked hard to stay true to our core purpose, to protect our customers and our people. And we've contributed significantly to the country's response as well, which is something that I'm particularly proud of. I think when you talk about the art and science, what's very clear, as I said earlier, is, you know, being true to your purpose and staying true to that purpose, testing every decision around your purpose. I think how you manage a team through these times is tricky, because the business needs to keep running with all the business as usual, over and above, you know, a frenetic response to the pandemic. The way that I thought about that is almost having a home team and an away team. A home team, their job is to run the business as brilliantly as they can, to really ensure that the business outperforms, because the better the basic business performs, the easier everyone else's job becomes. And an away team to focus on this huge and new external threat, and be innovative and responsive and reactive to what that external threat required. I think my background in emergency medicine, you know, when you've got a bleeding patient, which is what the pandemic effectively presented in figurative sense, you've got to stop the bleeding. And so we were very task oriented. We went about dealing with the surprises that arose each day with incredible resilience, thinking through innovative and agile ways to respond, and dealing with each and every one of those, and ultimately converging that in a strategy that was very coherent. And we were responsible leaders. We thought about each stakeholder group very clearly and carefully, and made sure that we address the needs of each stakeholder with their particular context in mind. So, you know, I don't know if that's enough art and science, but those are some of the hallmarks of what we've lived through.
I love it. I love the home and away strategy as well, right? Because it really elevates an element of inclusiveness, but diverse responsibilities and backgrounds that contribute to the ultimate output of how you support the country and human society, right? So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Ryan, when I look back at your journey, in addition to some of the things you've already talked about around authenticity, around teamwork, around how to react to failures, like when you think back at the leadership journey, what is the one thing that you're the most proud of?
There's a lot of things I'm proud of. I suppose the one thing I'm most proud of in my life is my family. But that's not quite a part of my leadership journey, but I would be remiss not to mention that. In my leadership journey, probably my biggest successes are people. I get enormous pleasure from seeing people that I work with, that work for me or work with me, succeeding and doing well. The growth of talent inside, you know, a leadership team, and then that talent going on to lead brilliantly outside of the leadership team, alongside us in other parts of the business. That's a hugely exciting part of our role. And I'm extremely proud of that, really proud of that. I think also, you know, just this immediate COVID-19 period, I know that we've saved lives. We've saved thousands of lives. You know, when I studied as a junior doctor, it gave me a huge thrill. There was a certain humility associated with being able to save the life of one patient in front of you. I think the impact we've had now through this pandemic is through our strategies. We've been able to see thousands of lives saved, and quantify that and measure it and prove it through, you know, not only vaccination initiatives and our role in vaccines, but also many other initiatives through COVID-19. And I'm extremely proud of that. We've given back to society as much as we've taken from society, and there's real equilibrium in our contribution to society here, and that makes me very proud.
You should be proud of that, Ryan. Like that's a lot. That's very admirable, but that's some really key moments and key components of your leadership journey to be proud of as well. And so thank you so much for sharing that so authentically. And like when you think about the early days of your journey, just in terms of when you started off, right? If there was a piece of advice that you could give yourself back then, just in terms of anything that you could have been doing differently, what would that piece of advice be?
Yeah, I think the one piece of advice is that God gives you 2 ears and 1 mouth so that you listen more than you speak. And I would give myself the advice to do a lot of listening and less speaking. I think that's very important. And as a young, emotionally immature leader, when one looks back, I think I could have been much more thoughtful and absorbing when today I realize how important that is, how much value there is from other people to gain and to learn. I think the other piece is to stay true to your moral compass at all times. You've only got, one reputation, and I made personal mistakes along the line. They didn't have direct professional implication, but I would have liked to have been a better person. And I think as a leader, you have such a huge responsibility to be somebody that people can look up to, not only in business, but also in life. I've learned those mistakes along the way. And I think if I could talk to my younger self, I would give myself more warning about those kind of pitfalls that leadership does bring, that are, that easily arise.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. And flipping that a little bit the other way around, right? Thinking about the journey much, much, much further down the line, a long time from now when it's all said and done. And when we talk about Ryan Noach, what is the one thing that you would like to be known for?
Sure, that's a tough one, Rishan. One thing, I can think of a few things. To think of one is quite tough. I guess, look, my comment about looking back was the people that have developed around me. I would love to be known for having developed amazing leaders around me who have gone on to do great things. I think that's certainly one of them. I think in a healthcare context, I have a clear vision for what I would like to achieve there too. I think we're going through a tipping point in healthcare. I think COVID-19 has accelerated a whole lot of healthcare trends. And I think the way that care is delivered across the world in the future looks very different to how it used to be delivered. I think a lot of care is delivered remotely. I think digital services are critical in that remote care and remote monitoring. I think the orientation of data becomes central to healthcare systems to be able to predict disease, to predict negative incidents, and then to act early and predictively to before people suffer consequences. And I think that's where the focus of healthcare will shift into this very preventative mode, using data and artificial intelligence at the center to pick up these predictive patterns and trends and act on them early. And I would love to be known for being at the center of this change to a patient-centric, data-centric care system, which can deliver care remotely and anticipate illness before it arises. I'd love to be at the heart of that, and I'll do whatever I can to contribute to that future for healthcare.
I love that. When you start talking about data and artificial intelligence, you're going to get me to jump out of my chair here and start talking to you about Microsoft, but I promise I'm not. I'm super excited to see that journey and witness that journey as well from the sides, just in terms of the impact you're making and just in terms of some of the things that you're going to be known for around care and around the evolution of how people are cared for and the impact that your organization is having as well on society. Ryan, what a great place to leave it. Like, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. I had no doubt that it was going to be valuable, and I'm pretty pleased with everything that you shared as well as a learning moment for those that are listening and watching. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much, Ryan.
Thank you, Rishan. Thanks for the opportunity, and well done on your series. We need people like you to help us become better leaders. So all the best.